number of those 2-inch lines. That's because a line, by definition, is an infinitely minuscule line. So there's the same number of lines, 2-inch lines, as there are points in that 2-inch plane. We can make that into a 3-dimensional object, into a 16-inch cube, and there are as many 4-inch planes in that 16-inch cube as there are points in all of space. So it works with numbers and it works with space. It also works with time. The wild thing is, with that cube, you would think, well, there's way more points in a 16-inch cube than there is in a 2-inch line. And that's not true. It's the same number. That is what is so paradoxical. The part is equal to the whole in infinity. This is important to understand when we get to Beckwith's argument. Not only can infinite space itself be divided into an infinite number of infinitesimal points, it can include an infinite number of finite special segments, 16 cubic inch cubes. It'll fit that also. Each of these segments has at least one finite measurement, length, area, or volume, for instance, but in infinite space it doesn't matter how big or how small those finite measurements are. Everything can fit in infinite space. There can even be an infinitely large or an infinitely small. So that in infinite space, what we're dealing with is there can be an infinite number of infinite spaces in an infinite space. Whew. That is heady stuff. In the real universe, what this means for us is that there could be an infinite number of kingdoms. And each of those kingdoms could be infinite in dimension. You see where he's heading with this. This is very intriguing. Another interesting aspect about infinity is that there are larger and smaller infinities. George Cantor demonstrated that with the mathematics of infinity. The number of points in the universe constitute one order of infinity, designated by the Hebrew letter Aleph with a small number 1 by it. This is Aleph 1. That number is actually the second order of infinity. The first order, designated Aleph Null with a 0, is the number of all possible integer and fractional numbers in the universe. Through mathematical comparison, Cantor has shown that the number of numbers is less than the number of points, even though they're both infinite. Numbers are infinite. One infinite number is actually smaller than another infinite number. And Cantor has proven this. This is the proper mathematics of infinity. It's wild, isn't it? It's so fascinating. Greek metaphysics, the Neoplatonistic Greek metaphysics from 2,000 years ago, that today's classical Christian theists inherit and use, it didn't have any of this comprehension. Now we have it. So by using the old system of philosophy to beat up Mormonism with, it's a waste of time. You'll lose every time. I'm going to show you why. Here's an excellent view of the wilderness of the Wolverine area here in Idaho. Absolutely beautiful shot of the entire wilderness of the Wolverine. With this concept of infinity, we now understand that it is impossible for man to number all of the points of the universe, of course. God has frequently made this point when he describes his creations, such as in the Pearl of Great Price, Moses 1:33 and 35. It is the meaning of God's reference to the sands as numberless as the sea, being innumerable. This is an analogy for the number of points in infinity. This is how God is trying to describe it so that we can comprehend it. The interesting thing is, infinite time is also subject to this concept, as is infinite space. And in the calculus, infinite time is described as those little dt, infinite points of time. Anybody who studies calculus knows about those dt. These are infinitesimal points of time. They add up to equate infinity. This is fascinating, because any finite period of time can be divided into these infinite bits of dt. These infinitesimal dt, they have the same relationship as measurable periods of time as points do to finite space, finite distances, as it were. The relationship is the exact same principle here. An infinite number of dt are experienced in 1 second. And this is important to keep in mind. And the same number, an infinite number of these dt are experienced every single day. Now, though theoretically infinite, these dt accumulate. And so they're subject to the same principles of mathematics as finite numbers of dt are today. So, we're going to live through an infinite amount of these little dt's today, and we're going to live through an infinite amount of these little points of dt tomorrow. And in fact, every single days of our lives, we live through an infinitesimal length of dt's. They actually have a measurable duration, and they're used in the calculus for practical purposes. It's interesting that an eternal God could see an infinite amount of these dt's in the day of life in man. He could have gone through an infinite number of these dt, with each having a measurable beginning and end during his infinite lifetime. These dt could actually be much larger. There actually could be an infinite number of them in any infinite time period. So infinite time is so vast that, assuming God progressed from an intelligence, using Doctrine and Covenants 93 verse 29 and Abraham 3:22, to his current position as God the Father during an infinite period of time, he could have existed as God for yet another infinite period of time before he created the earth on which we dwell. Under these circumstances, it would be mathematically correct to say that God was God from infinity to infinity, notwithstanding the fact that he had previously spent yet another infinite period of time progressing to the point to where he became God. So what I'm trying to tell you is, welcome to the world of infinity. The reason this isn't so well known is because, of course, we don't deal with infinity on a practical level in our everyday lives. But in everyday communication, infinity is best described as any number which exceeds by 1 the highest number by which anyone in a particular culture could reasonably be expected to count. And that's the point of infinity. It is countable, and we are in it and experience it every single day.